In the heart of Shenzhen, a place once known as the lungs of global trade, something strange is happening. Shipping containers. Not moving. Tens of thousands of them sit idle. Stacked like tombstones. Some have been there for weeks. Others for months. Full of unsold clothes. Frozen steel rods. Dead electronics. No trucks. No cranes. No orders. Once, this port moved over 27 million containers a year. Today, it echoes with silence. A live streamer walks between rusting containers, slashing prices. Buy this shirt for $1, he begs. No one replies. Behind him, a banner reads, "Made for America, but rejected by the world." Why is the factory of the world choking on its own products? And why is no one talking about it? Start with this number, 49.0. That's China's manufacturing PMI in April 2025. Below 50 means contraction. It's the lowest since December 2023. Factories aren't producing, not because they lack capacity, but because the world stopped buying. The first hit came from the United States. Under Trump's second-term economic offensive, Washington raised tariffs to 145% on over 2,000 categories of Chinese goods. Low-cost apparel, tools, auto parts, even solar panels. The de minimis loophole was closed. That alone pushed over 90% of small-value shipments, once duty-free, into full-tax territory. Platforms like Temu and Shein got crippled overnight. What used to cost $12 to ship now costs $32. Shipping contracts collapsed. Buyers froze their orders. The chain broke fast. Next came the retaliation wave. But not from China. From everywhere else. In Q1 2025, at least 22 countries introduced new tariffs, anti-dumping duties, or inspection rules aimed directly at Chinese exports. From Vietnam to Mexico. From Germany to Egypt. Steel was hit. Textiles were blocked. Electrical components were delayed. Each regulation was framed as safety, traceability, or carbon compliance. But the result was one thing. Chinese goods got stuck. So what did China do? They doubled down. Local governments subsidized freight. Banks issued credit to keep factories running. State-owned ports were ordered to waive fees and clear bottlenecks. But you can't force a buyer to buy. By March, over 5,000 garment factories had shut down. More than 100 steel plants declared bankruptcy or suspended operations. 800,000 industrial workers were laid off between January and April. In Zhejiang, workers waited outside shuttered plants for severance they would never receive. In Hebei, surplus steel rods were melted back into inventory. In Guangzhou, live streamers flooded Douyin, slashing prices on goods no one wanted. And the consumer? Silent. Domestic demand had already collapsed. Household savings hit record highs. Consumer confidence sat at a 15-year low. Retail sales fell 4.2% year-on-year in Q1. People weren't buying. Not shirts. Not steel. Not hope. China's entire export machine is built on a three-part system. Global demand, mass production, shipping velocity. When one breaks, the others follow. But in 2025, all three are broken. Buyers turned away. Factories slowed. Ports froze. Shenzhen, Ningbo, Qingdao, they all look the same now. Idle cranes. Half-empty trucks. Warehouses filled with products no one is waiting for. For decades, China believed it could weather any storm by scaling up. But now, the storm is internal. The bigger the system, the harder the fall. For years, the story was simple. China is irreplaceable. The world needs Chinese factories. The ports will never stop. But now they have. And the lie is falling apart. Let's start with the myth. If China can't export to America, it will sell to other countries. That sounds logical, but it's no longer true. Since 2024, the United States has rolled out traceability requirements under the new Fair Trade Enforcement Act. That means, if a shirt is made in China but shipped through Vietnam or Mexico, it still gets taxed. And worse, companies caught concealing origin risk criminal penalties. The loopholes are closing. Transfer pricing, certificate rerouting, even joint venture backdoors. All blocked. All tracked. Next myth. China can rely on domestic consumption. Sounds strong. Feels patriotic. But the numbers say otherwise. Retail sales are falling. Youth unemployment is above 21%, though no one reports it anymore. Over 70% of household wealth is locked in real estate, which is crashing. And consumer confidence? Lowest since the 2008 crisis. People don't spend when they feel like they're falling. They save. They wait. They freeze. The internal engine is broken. And then comes the media myth. Everything is under control. National TV shows busy ports, smiling workers, cargo ships sailing into sunrise. But live streamers tell a different story. Thousands of small merchants are broadcasting from abandoned storage yards. Some sit on top of shipping containers offering flash sales to no one. Others film empty trucks parked for weeks. One viral video showed a man dancing in front of sealed crates, yelling, "Buy one, take 10. Or we burn it all." It was deleted within hours. What's worse, no one is allowed to ask why. Weibo posts get censored. Douyin accounts are shut down. Port workers are told not to speak. Factory owners sign gag orders in exchange for debt extensions. Everyone is silent, because if they speak, the truth will sound too much like collapse. China's strength was never just cheap labor. It was belief. The belief that the machine can't stop. That scale means invincibility. That demand is always waiting. But in 2025, the world is moving on. And China is left holding its breath, surrounded by cargo it can't deliver, to buyers who no longer exist. This was never just a supply chain issue. It was a strategic reset. In 2017, the US began quietly building a new trade perimeter. Not with troops, but with rules. The first phase was tariffs. Then came the anti-circumvention laws. Then the tracing of components down to the bolt. By 2022, key allies joined: Japan, Canada, Australia, the EU. Not through speeches. Through digital audits, compliance treaties, and raw material agreements. They didn't just isolate China. They redesigned the map. This is not a blockade. It's something more surgical. China can still make goods, but it can't move them freely. It can still sell, but not without exposure. It can still compete, but only on terms it didn't write. And that is the point. Take the Global Value Chain Transparency Act passed in early 2024. It requires any imported good to declare original factory location, labor audit trail, ownership structure, third-party verification of tax records. It sounds bureaucratic, but it kills flexibility. China's old strategy, layering subsidiaries, rerouting exports, undercutting with shadow subsidies, no longer works. Then there's the rise of friendshoring. India signs 10-year steel and pharma deals with the US. Vietnam receives $14 billion in chip manufacturing from South Korea and Taiwan. Mexico becomes a gateway to the US with new tax credits under USMCA+. None of these moves are random. They are parts of a new doctrine. Supply chain sovereignty? America no longer just wants cheap. It wants secure, verified, aligned. Beijing didn't lose access to markets. It lost the narrative that it could not be replaced. It underestimated how fast the world could pivot. It overestimated how much pain buyers were willing to tolerate. And it bet too heavily on the myth that efficiency beats everything. But geopolitics is never just about efficiency. It's about control. And now Washington holds the gate. Look at the timing. As container traffic in Chinese ports slows, shipments from alternative hubs rise. The port of Ho Chi Minh expands its US-bound exports by 18% in just one quarter. India's Adani port signs record contracts with 3 US retailers. Rail routes from Eastern Europe to Western seaports get new investment from the EU. The message is simple. The world doesn't need China's ports. Not anymore. And so China now stands in a strange place. It can produce, but it cannot trade freely. It can manufacture faster than anyone. But the fast lanes are closed. It can build the world's goods, but the world is quietly walking away. A trade war without bombs. A containment strategy without battleships. A shift not of borders, but of routes. It starts with the factory. In Jiangsu, a textile plant closes after 22 years. Not because of bankruptcy, but because its main buyer, an American wholesaler, canceled all orders. Tariffs made the math impossible. Over 2,000 workers were let go. No notice. No payout. A few returned to their villages. Most stayed in the city, living in dorms without electricity, waiting for something new. Nothing came. In Shandong, a steel distributor shut down. His entire inventory, meant for construction in Africa, now rusts in a warehouse. He tried to sell it online, but no one would cover shipping, so he laid off his drivers, sold 2 delivery trucks, and disappeared from the app where he once posted daily. By May, more than 6,000 small manufacturers had stopped operating. Some were absorbed by larger firms. Most simply vanished. Banks quietly froze credit lines. Export insurance became too expensive. Logistics companies slashed fleets by 30%. What remains? Warehouses filled with boxes. Accounts filled with unpaid invoices. Neighborhoods filled with idle men. Now move to the workers. A survey in April found that over 58% of factory workers had either lost hours or lost jobs. Gig jobs boomed: food delivery, live stream moderation, warehouse sorting. But the pay dropped. A garment worker who once earned 7,000 renminbi per month now makes less than 3,500, delivering takeout. 12 hours a day. No insurance. No future. They call it flexible employment. But for most, it feels like limbo. In Dongguan, dormitories are half empty. In Zhongshan, food lines reappeared outside temples. In Chengdu, city buses run past shuttered industrial zones where no one gets on. Once, these zones were the heartbeat of China's middle class. Today, they echo with silence. Social stress rises quietly. Couples postpone marriage. Birth rates fall again. Credit card defaults rise. Loan sharks return. Social media shows cracks. A live streamer selling used uniforms from a closed electronics factory. A man selling his factory locker for scrap metal. A woman holding a sign. Willing to work. Any shift. Any wage. Just don't forget us. And yet, the news stays silent. State TV talks of resilience. Officials promise recovery. But in the real world, trust is breaking. The young no longer dream of factory jobs. The old no longer believe in pensions. Everyone saves. No one spends. And now it spreads beyond borders. Retailers in the US shift suppliers. Tech companies reroute assembly. Retail ports in Malaysia and India log record traffic. Freight prices drop, but only for Chinese exporters. No one wants the risk. No one wants the red flag on their shipping label. Even politics begins to fracture. Mayors avoid press tours at local ports. Party secretaries cancel job fairs at idle zones. Behind closed doors, governors ask for more subsidies, but offer no growth plan. And above them, silence. This is how a machine unravels. Not with explosions, but with nothing. No sound, no movement, no reply. A shirt sits in a container. A worker waits at a gate. A company defaults on payroll. A family skips another meal. A neighborhood closes its only school. A region loses hope. And a country, once the world's factory, loses its rhythm. They don't make noise. They don't protest. They don't tell you something's wrong. But they pile up, each one a sealed story, of canceled orders, of silent factories, of broken plans. No headlines. No speeches, just metal boxes under the sun. They were made for someone, somewhere, at some point in time. But now they wait, not to be moved, but to be forgotten. And as the world turns to other ports, as new maps are drawn without China at the center, the question is no longer, what happened to global trade? But this, when your ports become graveyards, is your economy still alive?